Pekanbaru Foundation, Mr. Dr. Zainal Abidin, MPH, Director of Hang Tuah University Pekanbaru, Mr. Professor Syafrani, MSc, Vice Rector 1, Mrs. Nurse Lita, MCAP, PhD, Vice Rector 2, Mrs. Dr. Aldiga Rinarti Abidin, MKM, Vice Rector 3, Mr. Ahmad Satria Effendi, SKM, MKes, the Dean and the staff and the lecturer of Hang Tuah University Pekanbaru. Our speaker today are Professor Stephen Hus and Professor Michael Bohne, and the student of Hang Tuah University Pekanbaru that we all proud of. I am Tufaila as the host to guide today's activity. Jalan-jalan ke kota Pekanbaru, singgah sebentar membeli kue. Mari bersama kita berguru, menimba ilmu menambah wawasan baru. Ladies and gentlemen are requested to stand. Let us sing the national anthem Indonesia Raya together, followed by the March of Hang Tuah University Pekanbaru.
Indonesia, tanah airku, tanah tumpah darahku. Di sanalah aku berdiri, jadi pandu ibuku. Indonesia, kebangsaanku, bangsa dan tanah airku. Marilah kita berseru, Indonesia bersatu. Hiduplah tanahku, hiduplah negeriku, bangsaku, rakyatku semuanya. Bangunlah jiwanya, bangunlah badannya untuk Indonesia Raya. Indonesia Raya, merdeka, merdeka, tanahku, negeriku yang ku cinta. Indonesia Raya, merdeka, merdeka, hiduplah Indonesia Raya. Indonesia Raya, merdeka, merdeka, tanahku, negeriku yang ku cinta. Indonesia Raya, merdeka, merdeka, hiduplah Indonesia Raya.
Universitas Hang Tuah Pekanbaru, tempat wawasan bersatu padu, tak kenal lelah, cerdaskan bangsa, menuju masa depan gemilang. Dengan rahmat Tuhan dan jiwa Pancasila, kembangkan ilmu dan raih cita, terus tingkatkan SDM Riau, cerdaskan generasi untuk maju. Semangat pendidikan tanah Melayu, mengemban tugas luhur dan suci, dengan berpedoman Tridharma dan menjunjung nilai bertuhan, bertakwa kepada Tuhan Yang Maha
please be seated. Para hadirin dipersilakan untuk duduk kembali. To begin this activity with blessing, let us bow our heads for a moment. The prayer will be led by the assessment Mr. Mardani ST MCom. You are welcome to come forward.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Baik, untuk memulai acara kita pada pagi hari ini, mari sama-sama kita berdoa. Mudah-mudahan kegiatan kita ini dilancarkan Allah Subhanahu wa taala hingga akhir nanti. Amin amin ya rabbal alamin. Na'udzu billahi minasyaitonir rajim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin wassalatu wassalamu ala asrofil anbiya'i wal mursalin. وعلى آله وأصحاب رسول الله أجمعين حمدا شاكرين حمدا نائمين حمدا يعفي نعمه ويكافئ مزيدا يا ربنا لك الحمد كما ينبغي لجلال وجهك الكريم وعظيم سلطانك اللهم اغفر لنا ذنوبنا ولوالدينا وارحمهما كما ربيانا صغيرا ولجميع المسلمين والمسلمات والمؤمنين والمؤمنات الأحياء منهم والأموات إنك على كل شيء قدير ربنا ظلمنا أنفسنا وإن لم تغفر لنا وترحمنا لنكونن من الخاسرين اللهم إنا نسألك سلامة في الدين وعافية في الجسد وزيادة في العلم وبركة في رزق وتوبة قبل الموت اللهم حوين علينا في شكرة الموت ونجاة من النار والعفو عند الحساب ربنا آتنا من لدنك رحمة وهيئ لنا من أمرنا رشدا ربنا تقبل منا دعانا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
We would like to thank Mr. Mardani for the prayers that have been recited. Next, let us hear the activity reports from the Office of International Affairs and Cooperation. To Mr. Benny Yulianto, we invite you to speak.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning everyone. It's glad to be here. First of all, praise to God Mighty for His grace and blessing that we are able to gather here for the meaningful and important international guest lecture. Blessing and peace we extend to great Prophet Muhammad by reciting Allahumma sholli ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala Sayyidina Muhammad. University Hang Tuah Pekanbaru is honored to organize the international lecturer event with the theme Digital Globalization and Data Law as Innovation Engines, reflect the dynamic transformation of our world. We are privileged to welcome to distinguished professor from Germany, Professor Stefan Koos. Thank you, sir, for welcome in University Hang Tuah Pekanbaru. And then Professor Dr. Michael Bone. Thank you so much for coming. This event is not more just a lecturer, but it's also become the transfer of knowledge, exchange, and global collaboration and intellectual growth. It aligned with our commitment to fostering international partnership, enhancing research capacity, and preparing our students to become a globally competent professional. On this occasion, allow me to extend my invitation and warm welcome to the chairman of Hang Tuah Pekanbaru, Mr. Dr. Zainal Abidin, MPH, and also our rector, Professor Dr. Safrani, MSE, and also vice rector for academic affairs, finance, and student affairs. Before we deep into this event, please allow me to highlight several points about our international affair and collaboration. The first, Universitas Hang Tuah Pekanbaru carries the vision to become excellent and competent university based on the health, environment, and sustainability at Southeast Asian level 2042. We hope this event become the starting point for the next collaboration between University Hang Tuah Pekanbaru, Universität des Bundeswehrmünchen, and Focus School Dortmund. On behalf of university leadership, I extend my deep appreciation to our guest lecturer, organizing committee, and all participants. May this occasion inspire new ideas, mindful dialogue, and lasting academic connection. Thank you so much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you to Mr. Benny Yulianto for the activity reports that have been submitted. Ladies and gentlemen, we have now arrived to the welcoming event. The speech will be delivered by the head of Hang Tuah Foundation Pekanbaru, Dr. Zainal Abidin, MPH.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Special for Professor Dr. Michael Bohm from Fachhochschule Dortmund in German, and Prof. Dr. Stefan Kaunz from Universität Bundeswehr München. They said you can speak Indonesian, sir? Yes, because your wife from Surabaya, from Madura, yeah? Your wife from no, from Jakarta. Oh no, bukan Madura. Oh, from Java. Yes. So I think it is. I would like to introduce my rector, Prof. Safrani. He is specialist in environmental health. Sometime maybe invited us to German to study about environmental, about IT, about something about how to become Uber alles country. German is Uber alles country because of the fact that you know, specialist in computer science, machinery, all of science from German. I read philosophy science like it is not to my student Karl Marx, but not Karl and others. And because of the fact of one of my daughter now work in Aachen startup organization. If you want to German, how many student and professor can go to your university? Huh? About 10, 12, 20? Maybe sometime Professor Safrani, we are invited our student to go to German to study how to become the best university in Riau. We invite you, sir, here, that IT is one of the distinguished science now. We have health science and computerized science. So we are glad to see you to give us science about computerized and about another. They said now in German we can speak English, not only in Germany. Before, my daughter lecture in German, so they study 1 year only for German, funded by DAAD. Now I don't know. They said because of uh, German is the member of European Union, so the diploma and the lecture can be in German and can be in English. I don't know. It is your your science. So we are glad to hear lesson, to hear uh, collaboration. How we can teach from you, how we can make from you the science, the practice. Maybe sometime we can see your laboratory about computer science. It is our university, just the child university, not university. How to become university like German university, like Munchen University, like RTWH, RTWH Aachen University, Bonn University, Berlin University. So now we hear lecture, experience, and sometimes we follow, we can enjoy not only to study in German but also to travel, maybe summer holiday. Thank you, sir, Professor Mikhail Horst, Mikhail Bone, and Stephen Koch. Good luck and see you sometime in German or in another place. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
We would like to express our gratitude to Dr. Zainal Abidin, MPH, for his warm and inspiring welcome. Next, let us witness together the presentation of souvenirs to the speaker as a sign of appreciation and gratitude. To Professor Stephen Hus and Professor Michael Bohne, Dr. Zainal Abidin and Professor Shafrani to come forward and give souvenir. kepada Wakil Rektor 1, Direktur Pasca dan Dekan dan PBMPP di lingkungan Universitas Hang Tuah Pekanbaru untuk dapat mengambil tempat dalam sesi foto bersama. Untuk peserta disilakan untuk berdiri karena kita akan foto bersama. Ayo disilakan gaya bebasnya. Thank you. I hope this photo will be a beautiful memory for all of us. Ladies and gentlemen, we have arrived at the main event, namely the panel discussion and interactive Q&A. On this occasion, we'll listen to presentation from two extraordinary speakers, Professor Stephen Hoos from the Bundeswehr University München, Professor Michael Bohne from University of Dortmund. This panel discussion will be moderated by our moderator, Mr. Herianto Eskom Mkom, as well-known figure and the Hang Tuah University Pekanbaru community. We respectfully invite you to speak.
Thank you. Pertama persiapan kan?
Excuse me. Even though I speak in English, I have to see my notes in my phone. Sorry. Bismillah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, everyone. How are you today? It's okay. I know when I speak with simple English, all of you will know. Excuse me, sir, prof. Mostly people, students in Indonesia, they know English, but they hard to speak. But they understand, I'm sure. I know, even though my English is not too good, but I will try. It's okay. But don't worry, guys, brother and sister. Mr. Stephen, Mr. Koi know English, know Indonesia. So if you don't know how to speak and I'll ask question in English, you can speak Indonesia. It will be better, right? It's okay. Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our international seminar, guest lecturer on digital globalization, data law as the engine of innovation. I'm here, I'm Herianto. I'm a great honor for me to here as moderator. Today's event, we are very happy with us, with you, Professor. Excuse me, welcome to Universitas Hang Tuah Pekanbaru. Professor Michael Bone and my Professor Dr. Stephen Kos. Give a big applause, please. And also, we also warmly welcome you all and the firstly chairman of Universitas Hang Tuah Pekanbaru Foundation, Mr. Zainal, Pak Zainal, we call him Pak Zainal, and also his daughter in German, and she's very expert in computer programmer, and she's already working a long time in Germany. Wow, give a big applause, please. It's okay. And also here, Honorable, the Chancellors of Universitas Hang Tuah Pekanbaru, Professor Safrani, and the Chancellor 1, Chancellor 2 and Chancellor 3, the Head of Faculty of Computer, the Head of Faculty of Law, the Head of Faculty and Communications, and here, the Dean of the Faculty of Computer here, Mr. Dr. Rika, Mrs. Dr. Rika Milianti. Well, thank you very much for being here today. We hope this seminar will give us valuable knowledge and new ideas and inspiration about important role digital globalization, digital innovation and data law in our future. Now, before we start, please allow me briefly introduce our first distinguished speaker, Professor Dr. Stephen Kos. He has shared his expertise at many international conferences and has inspired many people with his ideas on how data law can drive innovation in the digital era. We are honored to have him with us today. Please join me welcoming Professor. Okay, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Selamat pagi semuanya. Kalau mengerti bahasa Indonesia sulit, ya. Kalau mengerti bahasa Indonesia dengan mikrofon sulit, karena orang-orang dengan mikrofon di universitas biasanya mereka berbicara, Prof, I have a question, and then I don't understand anything, even in English not, ya. So saya bisa berbicara, tapi kalau Q&A dan mungkin saya perlu translation, ya. Saya mau terima kasih ya kepada Bapak Rektor dan kepada Bapak Head of the Yayasan, ya, dan kepada Vice Rectors and Deans and untuk kesempatan hari ini berbicara hari ini. Saya tidak punya banyak waktu. Saya punya materi di bahasa Indonesia. Saya translate materi saya, tapi saya mau berbicara mungkin di bahasa Inggris atau mungkin kadang-kadang campur-campur. So, but where is my presentation? Not yet there. So this is my presentation. But first. Yeah, we'll go. Up. Ya, ini. Ya, how will perubahan paradigma digital dari human-centered menuju arsitektur hukum hibrida? 7 tesis. Ya, how will our life and our technology change, especially in the terms of the law? Tidak ada fakultas ekonomi di sini, tapi kalau ada fakultas ekonomi di sini, orang-orang di fakultas itu biasanya berbicara tentang disrupsi, semua disrupsi, ya. Untuk ekonomi mungkin benar, tapi untuk hukum tidak benar sampai sekarang. Karena di hukum tidak pernah ada disrupsi, juga tidak disrupsi dengan internet. Internet itu tidak disrupsi. Internet bikin transaksi di komunikasi lebih cepat dan lebih efektif, tapi tidak ada disrupsi karena kontrak yang bagaimana bikin kontrak itu sama seperti di masa lalu. Ya, dengan internet tidak ada ganti. Kita bisa menggunakan kodifikasi hukum di Jerman, di Belanda, di Indonesia, di Perancis, kodifikasi Jerman dari tahun 1900, kodifikasi Indonesia berbasis kodifikasi Belanda 1848, tapi hari ini masih bisa menggunakan itu di 25, ya. Kenapa? Karena di hukum tidak ada disrupsi. Metodis dan basis hukum dan prinsip hukum sama seperti lalu, ya. Tapi aku mau berbicara tentang disrupsi hukum yang benar, karena hari ini dengan digitalisasi dan global digitalisasi dan globalisasi digital ada benar-benar disrupsi. So first one. Mari kita mulai dengan data, ya. Dia nanti akan berbicara tentang data protection, dan di universitas di sini ada mata kuliah data protection law, ada mata kuliah perlindungan konsumen, ada mata kuliah hukum persaingan usaha, dan biasanya itu terpisah. Mahasiswa belajar hukum perlindungan konsumen, hukum persaingan usaha, hukum data protection, hukum kontrak, ya, and so on. Tapi itu mungkin di metodik hari ini, untuk masa ini, itu tidak cukup, sudah tidak cukup. Saya selalu bilang kepada mahasiswa, Anda harus belajar hukum in a context. Hukum persaingan usaha tidak bisa mengerti tanpa hukum perlindungan data pribadi. Hukum perlindungan konsumen tidak bisa mengerti, tidak bisa percaya tanpa hukum persaingan usaha. Hukum perlindungan konsumen misalnya itu hukum kontrak, ya, kalau produk-produk saya beli itu tidak benar, mereka harus kembalian uang kepada saya, ya. Tapi hukum perlindungan konsumen juga hukum pasar, karena konsumen is the decider in the market. Konsumen yang sovereign, konsumen yang benar dengan informasi yang benar, itu sovereign, dan konsumen ini bisa pilih produk yang benar di pasar. Banyak orang konsumen pilih baik atau tidak pilih baik, tapi kalau tidak pilih baik dan persaingan tidak jujur, nanti ada wrong incentive di pasar, ya. Itu persaingan usaha, tapi di Indonesia mereka orang-orang bilang oke, itu hukum persaingan usaha, itu hukum perlindungan konsumen. Juga Undang-Undang Nomor 899 tidak bikin konteks itu. So, data itu yang terpenting di masa hari ini, yang terpenting. Data itu tidak isolate data pribadi dan perlindungan personalitas. Itu tidak cukup. Data penting untuk monopoli di platform ekonomi. Kalau usaha punya banyak data, punya power. data yang penting untuk untuk dibuka persaingan. Kalau bikin data transferable, persaingan nanti buka dan ada banyak mungkin kompetitor baru bisa masuk pasar. Tapi kalau buka pasar dengan buka data itu masalah untuk data pribadi. So itu ambivalen ya. On one side we want to protect the private data and the secret. On one side we want to protect the secret of the company, and on the other side we must open it. Tapi tidak ada fenomenon di ekonomi digital hari ini yang bisa percaya tanpa percaya data. ChatGPT tidak bisa tanpa banyak data training. Data training artinya power global. ChatGPT itu power global. Kita di Indonesia dan di Jerman tidak punya platform ini. Amerika Selatan punya. Amerika, what is it? United States, US punya itu. Ya, mereka bisa blackmail us dengan itu. Ya, kalau Trump bilang tidak ada akses untuk Uni Eropa, tidak ada akses untuk Indonesia, atau tidak mau regulasi platform ini, kalau Uni Eropa bikin regulasi platform Amerika, nanti tidak ada NATO dan Rusia mungkin come into Europe and kill us. Yeah, yeah, you know what I mean. This is what happening. That is what the United States do in the moment. They say, if you regulate us, we will punish you. We will not support NATO anymore, and then let Putin do what he wants to do with you. That's what their vice president said in Munich. So it is very important to understand that without data, we don't understand nothing. So the data, and we should not understand data only in the sense of data pribadi, protection, but we must find an equilibrium between antara buka data untuk competitor, antara secret of the company, because data also a company secret, right? It's an asset. Antara fungsi data sebagai uang, ya, karena akun Instagram itu tidak gratis, Anda bayar dengan data, ya. Itu masalah yang pertama. Next. Speaking about the large language models, itu sudah berbasis untuk banyak produk. Tapi saya yakin Anda menggunakan ChatGPT setiap hari, ya. You look so ashamed about that. I mean, of course, we are in a transition time. Sometimes your professor or your lecturer said, I don't want that you use ChatGPT, but this is transition. Nobody will care about that anymore. In 2 or 3 years, nobody cares about that because we cannot avoid it. People will use it. The whole internet is already contaminated with computer-generated, AI-generated texts. Do you think in 3 years someone will check out in the publishers, the paper is written with ChatGPT? Yeah, nobody will check that. Yeah, of course, don't use navigating, don't use pivotal, don't use, it is important to explain that blah, 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 or something like that, because then I know it's ChatGPT and it's not good style. But your paper will be rejected because of bad style. I reject papers, because I'm a reviewer in Indonesian journals, I reject papers because the style is bad, because they use a ChatGPT style, or they make the ChatGPT rubbish. I read today, there is studies saying that many companies are not so more productive now with the ChatGPT or with the AI. We think that is so productive, but you know what is not productive? That 40% of what people do with AI is rubbish, because it looks professional, but actually it is rubbish. I myself tried that. I wrote a paper only with ChatGPT, just ChatGPT. Of course, no footnotes, no references. And then if you want to send it to some journal, you need references. I'm not the guy writing some dummy references like the guy whose paper I rejected last week, because there was obviously ChatGPT and he just put some ridiculous references and hoping that the reviewer will not read that. I tried to do the real references because I know my topic, right? But you know what? I could do it, but it was so much work to go to the 10,000 words and put references in the right place and the right references that I let it. So the paper is until now not published. This is not productive. So people think they can use, anyone can use this. Any idiot can write a book now about this and about that, or a paper about this and about that. But if you are not an expert in that, you cannot. You just produce rubbish, and that will cost your company productivity. So ChatGPT, nevertheless, is somehow monopolistic in the moment, yeah, because it costs a lot of money to feed the program and to train the program, because you need all these data and to store the data, to scratch it, to scrap the data, to collect it, to process it, costs a lot of calculating power. And that is not possible from today to tomorrow for Indonesia, also not for Europe. We have now Mistral, but it is not yet on the level like that one. And then there came DeepSeek, and then the Chinese brag around, but in the end comes out, they got the NVIDIA chips illegal. Not without NVIDIA. We did it with our own chip, it's cheaper, see, it's so easy, huh? No, they need NVIDIA. So we have monopoly of the United States. It's not so easy, right? So we are dependent on them. But maybe this is on the long term not a problem. If we hope that maybe the US government comes into clear mind again, maybe in some years, hopefully, then maybe their authorities for persaingan usaha, for antitrust law, will work properly again. And I am sure on the long term, the ChatGPT platform, the Claude platform, the large language models platform will be regarded as commodities. And they will be forced by the competition authorities to open their platform for smaller products. And that is our chance. We can develop specific products based on the basis of the ChatGPT, for example, developing special models for medicine, for detecting cancer, for law firms. And that is our business then. Because for that we don't need this big amount of the data. We can do that with our expertises. And this is where the value raising will happen. It's like some countries only have oil and gas and crude material, and the other countries have the sophisticated products. Indonesia fought under Jokowi to develop the industry to make more sophisticated product and not so dependent on the raw material. Unfortunately, it failed, right? Other countries in ASEAN are more industrialized now. But raw material is always a problem, because sooner or later, the value raising is in the more developing products, yeah. So in the industry. So this is very important, and actually already the European Union antitrust and AI legislation, we have the AI Act, will have a big impact so far because our market is so important, and then we can apply our rules extraterritorial. We call it the Brussels effect. The question is just whether the Washington effect of deregulation will win or the Brussels effect of regulation will win. Don't get me wrong, I'm critical about the AI regulation because it's a horizontal regulation. We kill our innovation with that. I agree with the Chinese to make a vertical regulation. There where we see the need, we regulate it and define the AI specifically for that purpose. Of course, many basis ideas of the Chinese legislation is not ours, yeah, because the Chinese see Etika as a point of what is important for the Communist Party of China and so on. This is a different approach. But technically, their approach to regulate, in my opinion, is more effective. Next one. Where is it? So, this is a big deal. It sounds boring. Safety by design. Mungkin bosan ya untuk untuk aspek ini ya, itu bosan. Tapi itu penting untuk teknologi. Karena itu artinya kami tidak bisa tunggu sampai masalah sudah ada. kami harus identify masalah di masa depan untuk masa depan dan bikin regulasi yang force usaha menintegrasi security management di produk-produk. For example, kalau ada AI platform, sebelum platform ini masuk pasar, mereka harus coba identify possible problem. So, di data protection, ini sudah ada prinsip di GDPR, General Data Protection Regulation, Uni Eropa punya artikel 25, artikel 25 adalah safety by design and default. So before you make something which is relevant for the data, you must integrate safety measurements into it to make sure that you not collect more data than necessary, that you not process in a way which is infringing the rights of the people, and so on. We need something similar for the AI regulation because we are not able to foresee much, but at least we can foresee certain problems. But the platform, kalau ada masalah, kalau masalah sudah terjadi, itu sudah terlambat. Karena platform sudah cepat global. Yeah? So unfortunately, Undang-Undang Pelindungan Data Pribadi Indonesia tidak terintegrasi safety by design and default. Yeah? Nobody knows why. They copied everything from the data protection regulation, but this not. And that means dark pattern practices. You cannot do anything. Yeah? Very dangerous thing. So this is, in my opinion, a big aspect for the future for the regulation. We need safety by design in all parts of digital law. Next one. Konsep hukum perilaku mencapai batasnya. This is maybe one of the most important aspects. Usually, biasanya, hukum berbasis perilaku manusia, niat, tanggung jawab, ya. It's all about fault, who is responsible for something, can we foresee the problem, are we guilty, like in the criminal law, but also in the tort law. So we need responsibility. I tell my students always, di hukum, yang penting tahu beberapa prinsip basis. Ya, satu prinsip basis itu assignment of responsibilities. Everything is assignment of responsibilities and assignment of profit. Yeah? Who should have the advantage of something and who should have the risk? Contracts are always an equilibrium of risk and awaiting profits. Yeah? So if I make a contract with you, there's another principle, trust. I trust you, maybe you will pay back, I hope. I trust you individually, but if you not pay back, I can trust in the legal system that they force you. Yeah? But if we negotiate, nego-nego itu proses nanti kalau nego-nego sudah dan ada kontrak itu berhasil nego-nego dan ada beberapa equilibriums antara risk and chance. Yeah? So everything is assignment of responsibility. Tapi bagaimana mau assign risk di sistem yang semakin kompleks, ya, seperti supply chains, international supply chains. How you want to manage risks? How you can make a company in Germany responsible for mining of timah in Bangka? Yeah, that means we cannot maybe say, okay, Apple or German company, you are guilty that 100 workers for in the textile fabric in Pakistan burned because the owner of the fabric closed them in. This is it's not your fault. You cannot be responsible because nobody in the company could know that. But we can force you to check out how is the situation of the workers in this company, and if you define problems, then you must take measurements. Yeah? This is also to do with safety by design and default. So this means we will change more and more from tanggung jawab kepada kepada instrumen yang tidak depending di tanggung jawab atau di personal guilt. Yeah? It means, for example, AI will make contracts. A contract by AIs is, on the first side, nothing else than a contract by people. It's artificial intelligence, right? But contracts are based on private autonomy. Private autonomy. Private autonomy is not just some principle to learn. Private autonomy is maybe the most basic principle of the contract law. It is based on personal freedom and therefore is based on the constitutional right of dignity and personal freedom of the human individual. Private autonomy is not needed for AI. AI is not free. And as AI is not free, if you just take the contract law and say, okay, whether that is him or AI acting like him, in the Turing test, nobody can find out whether it's him or AI, then you transfer a humanistic concept to a digital concept. And that is the real disruption in the law, because that would be breaking the basis of the private law from the constitutional and philosophical basis of the law. That's why we have a real disruption here. And that's why we must understand that these human concepts are ending. We need alternative instruments for that. We need an alternative law for the digital entities if we don't want to break with our rules. And that would be an erosion of our law. Next one. We will, this is terkait dengan itu ya, kita pinggir dari konsep tanggung jawab individu kepada tanggung jawab organisasi. It will be more and more important to understand that there are not only individuals responsible for something, a CEO or some individual who is programming the AI or whatever, because we cannot know who is responsible in complex organizations. So we will come more and more to concepts which let someone be responsible even if there is not an individual guilt. And that is also happening because we combined it with that concepts of tanggung jawab, which we have to integrate safety in our organization. Yeah, for example, we have the concept already long in the civil code in Germany, maybe here also. If someone has an employee and that employee is dependent on the boss and the employee causes a damage, even if the employee is not guilty, but it is a break of the law, then the employer has to be responsible because he did not supervise the employee properly. But he will not be liable if he can prove that he did every measurement to take care that everything, every safety of the leading of that employee was taken. Yeah? So it means if I have a documentation, how I train my employees, how I supervise my employees, then it doesn't matter whether the employee in this time was maybe not supervised. If I can prove that usually it's supervised, I'm free of the liability. This is organizational responsibility because the guilty of the employer is because the employer was not supervising or organizing the company in a proper way. You can transfer that to concerns, to big company conglomerates. Yeah? If a big company like, let's say, Google has an AI, or if a big company like Apple has some liability problem, how can the CEO be responsible, or how can the company be responsible? Because if the company is not really able to make a documentation that they took care of that, that's a problem. So in the supply chains, for example, if the German company does not documentate that they were supervising the partners in the supply chain, that they were checking and trying to identify problems in the supply chain, maybe this Pakistani company was already problematic in the past, then they cannot say, but it's not our responsibility. This is the company in Pakistan. This is a different legal person, right? No, they are forced to check out their supply chain and must be able to documentate that they did the best to mitigate possible risks in the supply chain. They are not responsible for specific problem-specific damages often, yeah? Because you cannot, of course, you cannot await that a German company goes to the third grade of the supply chain and force this company to do something different. But if they define that problem, they must make all the possible to mitigate the risk. And if it's not possible, maybe they must even throw that company out of the supply chain. If not, liable, yeah? And this is a problem, of course. By the way, Indonesian would be saying, this supply chain due diligence law is post-colonial. Yes, I read that from some African author in Germany. Is it post-colonial? The West want to force us to have their ethic. First of all, this is all principles in the Human Rights Declaration, which is international fundamental rights. And second, even if it's post-colonial, it's our right because it's our business law, because it's our right to define what products we want in our market. Yeah? If I don't want to have a product produced with children work, this is our business. And third, there is studies, I read a study just right now, a study between Indonesia, Brazil, and India, and they found out that the majority of the people agree with the supply chain due diligence law of the European countries and of other countries, you know, because they say it's fine, because we hope that it will improve the working condition in our countries too. In Indonesia a little bit less than in Brazil and India. India is totally clear, but Indonesia at least 55% are in favor of that. It's because of the palm oil thing, I'm sure. Yeah. So next one. Tanggung jawab diri dalam kerangka hukum. We will be more relying on us, ourselves. We cannot trust that the government will or the legislator will protect us. This is not surprising. Kalau saya tanya, Anda punya rasanya cukup pelindungan data pribadi di Instagram? If you are of clear mind, you will say, of course not. How you want to control what American platform companies do? There is no territorial sovereignty anymore because it is supra-territorial. We cannot force American or Chinese companies unless they are interested in our market. As they are interested in our market, the US platforms respect our data protection law a little bit, yeah, and also pay the fines European Commission give them. But if it's about Brunei, they will say, so Brunei has legislation, Malaysia has legislation. So what? So what? So what? Yeah. So it's not. Maybe Indonesia has a big market. Maybe it's more easier. Yeah. But usually on long term, they will not respect our rules of protecting our citizens. This means we will have a loss of the meaning of the law. The international law has a crisis. The international law cannot be enforced anymore. Don't talk in the papers all the time about we need international legislation about platform. Nobody will make international legislation about the platform because the Chinese have different interests than us. We have different interests than the US. Trump already has different interests than the presidents before. So there will be never setuju for legislation. Even in the European Union, we are not setuju and make compromises all the time. There is no international protection of our rights. Forget about that. That's over. And the territorial national legislation is just a lip service. Nothing will work. That means, on the long term, we all will have to be self-responsibility. We must protect ourselves. We must limit what we give to the platforms. If we're not, it's fine. But prohibitive digital law, like we have now in the data protection law, forbidding this, forbidding that, what can we anyway be not enforced, is wrong incentive. Why? Because it's also erosion of the law. The law will not be trusted anymore. Ask yourself, you have a lot of legislation about consumer protection. Do you feel protected? No. So when you say, okay, there is a lot of positive law, this is actually quite good, yeah? But it's anyway not working. Then what you will think about the other state law? You will just say, yeah, it's anyway not. Have to pay tax? It's anyway not important. Anti-corruption is anyway not important. Everything not important because anyway it's enforcing something. Or not only or maybe enforcement to that one and that one and that one not. If you enter the aircraft and Bapa dan Ibu want to go in the first row, but they have to wait until their zone is, and I wait, and then I'm the last idiot with a bag in the aircraft and must put my bag there, then it's over. Then I will not do it next time anymore if they not enforce the rule. Bapa, you have to wait. Ibu, you have to wait. Yeah, it's not your zone yet. So this is erosion of the law. This is not good, and that's why we must be self-responsible. Ask yourself whether you're enough self-responsible. Maybe it's not a problem because Homo digitalis is not so keen on protection anymore. I mean, you post your grandmother in the coffin in Meta or in Instagram and post, I don't know, you watch people going to the mosque, killing people because you want to be informed. Yeah, actually you want to be entertained. That is your own responsibility. Actually, if you're not responsible, your own fault. It is over. Next one. And that is maybe the most important, and then I'm ready. Next one. AI, creativity, and culture. What does the AI with our creativity and our culture? And this is, actually I don't know, yeah, but I can say something. If I am writing something creative and any idiot can take my text and feed the AI with that and then produce something with that and say it's his text, then why I should produce creative text in the future? I mean, if I don't have appreciation for that anymore. And ask yourself, you go to TikTok, you go to internet, you read maybe books, ask yourself, I am already very bored because I can already not say is this AI or is this not AI, I hate these AI products. So the people will be more or less bored because everything, as I said, is contaminated with AI products. Nobody will be any more creative because it's not paying back. Sooner or later, nobody will pay for that. Some say this is democratization of the culture because now the poor can also make culture themselves. They can make artwork themselves. You don't have to buy it in a gallery anymore. You can make yourself artwork. You can make yourself books. Later we will make maybe our videos, our movies. We don't need Leonardo DiCaprio anymore. We have artificial movies. We want to see a movie about that. We let the AI produce the movie and then we have it in our own personal Instagram on demand. Yeah, we don't need that anymore. But this is a problem for the culture. But it's also possible that we have not that effect because maybe the people are bored. And then what happens when the people are bored? People use mechanical watch instead of Apple Watch. People buy watches for $40,000 which are mechanical and much more worse than G-Shock, which is quartz. Or people use vinyl, or people want to read books maybe. So I already go to the classics back, yeah, classics before 2000 because I know it's written by people. So I call it the cultural, what is it, what I call it, the retrocultural reaction. Maybe that is the safeguard for us, the retrocultural reaction. Maybe the market will force us, or force the industry and the business to produce the real human books again. But that will be maybe expensive, and maybe not anyone can afford that. And then it might be the contrary of democratization of the culture. With that, I am ending. Maybe in the Q&A we can have more discussion about that. Thank you very much. It is very short. Actually, you can read much of that in the book in Bahasa Indonesia, which comes already next month or over next month as an e-book. It's Private Law and AI in Bahasa, all in Bahasa. And there is also a chapter about that. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Prof, for insightful, inspiring, wonderful presentations. But before we go to question and answer, we have a second speaker that very the best and wonderful also. We will welcome to Professor Michael Pong. How many minutes? How many minutes will take time? 20 minutes, okay. After this, we go to question and answer. Please, all the students, lecturers, if you have a questions, please you note first time and you can ask me. Okay, the floor is yours. Thank you.
You have 5 slides? Yes, good morning, everybody. Good morning. Thank you very much for the invitation. It's really a pleasure to be here. Thank you very much to the rector and to all the peoples. Thank you very much, madam. So it's really nice to be here, beautiful university. And I would to add something to the presentation Stefan gave you a second before, because I would like to talk a little bit about the law. You know, we are from the law and we believe in law. But you know, there's always a problem with the law, especially when it comes to data. I mean, data is the oil of the 21st century. That means that data will be most important in the future. And the problem with Germans is, and you will know when your daughter is in Aachen, Germans are more focused on engineering. We want to build the best cars. It must be very good. The doors must open. There shouldn't be any link between it, and it must be perfect. That's Germans. But it's focused on engineering. That's not the Chinese way. That's not the way of BYD. This is the BMW and Mercedes way. But the problem is, nowadays, of course, engineering is very important. But probably even more important is data. What is your car doing? Your car is a computer. It's not only for driving. I mean, in Indonesia, a car is for standing in the traffic jam, right? It's not driving anymore. So it's a computer. And that's what, for example, Germany must learn. It's not all about engineering, and your daughter will learn in Aachen. It is more and more about data. And it's less engineering in the future. And that's what we have to learn. For example, when we try to sell cars from Germany to China, BMW must learn for people from China, especially from the big cities, it's very important to have big screens, to play games, to talk with the car, to have interaction. It's not so important whether the brakes are the best in the world. So you see, as data is so important, on the one hand, we must find a way to have innovations in the field of data, to have new application, how you can use data, and on the other hand, you need rules on it. So you have to strike a balance. And the problem with the law is that the law is always looking back. We try to decide cases for the future, but we are looking back because we have the experience from the past, and now we draft new legislation, and then we try to regulate the future. That's what also Stefan was talking about. I mean, when you have a contract, when you want to buy a car, the sales contract is always the same. In Germany, it's the same from 1900, because it's a contract. You have always the same problems. When you want to have something about data, 2 years is a long period. And that's, I would tell you, what we are doing in Europe on it. It is helpful for promoting innovation, because there are some acts, some legislation in Europe to deal with the problem of how to use data. On the one hand, we have a data protection regulation in the General Data Protection Act. Stefan already mentioned. Data protection is not about the protection of data. What is about the protection of data? That's data security. So data protection is about the protection of the data subject. It's about the protection of the human being, of your personal rights. It's not protecting of the data. And that's sometimes the problem in Indonesia, because you have the same law, nearly the same law than in Europe. They copied the Data Protection Act in Indonesia. So you have very similar rules, but you are really weak in cybersecurity. So that means you have a lot of data leaks, you have a lot of problems. We can read in the press that the data are used by others. It's not a problem of data protection. It's a problem of data security. So your data protection law is perfect when compared to Germany, because it's nearly the same. So this is the one side of how to use personal data. It is the data protection, the protection of the human being, of the data subject. It is about what is your relation to the data generated by you as a person? And sometimes data protection can be a problem for innovation. Why? Because when you have a very strong protection of the person, it's difficult to use the data for other applications. So the problem is always you have to find a balance between how to use data for innovations and on the other hand, how to protect the individual. And in Europe, we have very strict laws on the implementation of data protection, the enforcement of data protection. In a way, it is good because the enterprises must obey this law, must to implement it in their business. But for example, for innovation, this could be a big problem. Because, for example, when you want to start a startup, you begin with a startup, you have 3 persons, and you want to deliver food, like Gojek. So you have 3 people working with you, and then the data protection tells you you are not allowed to use the data of your clients, for example, to send them marketing without consent. So that means when you start, you must implement a data management system. This is very easy for BMW, it's very easy for Gojek, it's very easy for big enterprises. For small and middle-sized enterprises, it's very difficult because it can lead to a lot of problems for your company. Because in Germany, for example, in every country in Europe, we have very strong authorities. You don't have a strong data protection authority in Indonesia, that's the problem. But on the other hand, in Europe, our authorities are in a way too strong because they can put pressure on the industry, they can put fines on you up to 4% of the annual turnover, and they can tell you you have to change your business model because you are infringing the data protection rights of a person, the subject rights of a data subject. So that means also the person can claim in court. For example, you sent an email to somebody and he didn't give you the consent before. Then he can claim for compensation and he will get around $500 US. So in Indonesia, I could earn a fortune because once traveling with CityLink or with Garuda or using Gojek, I get emails every day and WhatsApp and so on. So it's a lot of money you could make here. So this is a strict implementation of data protection law, but in a way, it's too strict from my point of view and from the point of view of Stefan, because it can block innovation. Because when the first thing you have to think about when you will have innovation in your startup, when the first thing is data protection, there is not enough space for innovation in a way. So this is the problem in Europe at the moment. So the data Commission and also the European Commission tries to find a balance. And this is the problem at the moment. They have a data strategy in Europe to find a way how it should be regulated to deal with data. So on the one hand, we have the data protection regulation. It's about the protection of the data subject. On the other hand, we have the Data Act. And this came into force on the 12th of September this year. So 2 weeks ago, so we are very up to date. You don't have a Data Act in Indonesia yet. Probably you will have in future. So on the one hand, you have the data protection of the subject, the data subject. On the other hand, you have a Data Act which is about the sharing of data in order to promote innovation. And this is the problem, how to strike the balance between both areas. And what I want to tell you is where is the problem to find a balance between those areas. Because the Data Act is about connected devices, and it is about how to use data generated by a connected device. Comes back to the example of a car. Your car is a computer. Your car is producing a lot of data. It's a connected device. It knows a lot about you. Sometimes your car knows more about you than your wife, because your car knows where you have been yesterday. Probably sometimes your wife doesn't know really, because you were with your friends and you tell her, well, I was learning in university or whatsoever, or I was walking a lot. So your car knows a lot about you. Your car knows how you use the car. For example, a German Autobahn, you are allowed to drive as fast as you want. And so the car knows what happens when you are driving 200 kilometers per hour, what is happening to your brakes, what is with the software. So a lot of machine data which can be used by other companies to develop new innovations. And normally, and that was in the past, these data wasn't shared with others. It was taken by BMW, it was taken by the producers of refrigerators. Think in the future, you will talk to your fridge, and your fridge will know what you will eat. The fridge knows when are you on holidays. The fridge knows how many children are living here. The fridge knows, okay, there's Ramadan, then you need different food. And then you need the food in the evening. And so we will have more and more connected data, and this Data Act is about how to use this data. So first of all, I will give you a short introduction to data protection law. You see, no? Back? So, next. You see, the key point about data protection is the definition of what is personal data. And this question is still open in a sense. Now we have some judgment, some court decisions on it from the European Court of Justice. This is the court responsible for European law, but it's not clear, because you see the definition is personal data means any information relating to an identified or identifiable natural person. It's the same definition in Indonesian law. Identified or identifiable person. The definition of an identified person is not very difficult. Your name, your address, your age, whatsoever, you're an identified person. But the biggest problem is, when is it identifiable? When is a person identifiable? And this decision, whether it is personal data or not, is the question whether you have to apply data protection law or not. Because when it's non-personal data, then it's no problem under data protection. Then it's not data protection, only when it is personal data. And an identifiable natural person, the court, the ECJ, the European Court of Justice, decided, for example, an IP address can be personal data, because this IP address makes you an identifiable person. You have the additional information. This person is using the computer in a specific moment, so it is an identifiable person. But you see, that means that the definition is quite very broad. So more and more data is personal data, and then it is under the Data Protection Act. Next, please. And you see, in practice, we have to find some rules to clear the relation between the use of personal data and the use of non-personal data. Because when you are a processor of personal data, you have a lot of obligations. For example, you have to inform the individual. You have to give a copy to the individual about your data, what they collected. For example, in Germany, our students have the right to get a copy of their exam. They can ask me, Prof, please copy my exam. And then I have to give the student their exam. There's a court decision on it. They have the right from the Data Protection Act. Normally we tell them, okay, you can take a photograph of it, but you know, as a lecturer, you don't want them to have your exam because you want to use it again. So when there's a photo of the exam, you will send it to all your friends. Even when you tell the students, don't send it to your friend. When I tell you not to send to your friends, it will be there in some seconds, I think. That's human. It's normal. So it's a problem for us, but that comes out of the data protection. Next, please. Next. In a way, it is a problem, and this is what Stefan told us before. When we come to international relations, in Indonesian data protection law and also in European data protection law, we have some regulations on territoriality. It means that when you transfer personal data to the European Union to a country outside, then this country outside must have a similar level of protection as you have in Europe. You have the same regulation in Indonesia. And that makes it difficult in the world. That's what Stefan was telling us, the dominance of the US tech enterprises. We can complain about them, but then we have to change it and to have some innovation and have our own conference tools, for example. In Germany, and also in the other countries of Europe, it is forbidden for me as a professor to use WhatsApp to send documents to the students. Why is it forbidden? Because WhatsApp doesn't tell you what they are doing with your data. It's transferred to America, to the US, and they always tell you. It's the same with Insta and all the other social media. They always tell you, we take the protection of your personal data very seriously. It's a joke. Always when you read somewhere that somebody writes, I take your personal data very seriously, you know, they will use the data for everything. And especially when they are from the US. So we can complain about it. And they tell us we are not allowed to use WhatsApp when we are in contact with students. We are not allowed to use Zoom. They tell us we should use a European solution. But there isn't any real European solution. So that means, in fact, we are using WhatsApp, we are using Zoom, and we wait what happens. Because the dominance of the US makes it difficult to implement data protection law in this field. But it's not the problem of the US. They can decide whatever they want. And Stefan told you about the way how they apply data protection in America. In America, they say, we will wait. The enterprises can develop something, they can do something, we won't find new regulations. But when there is a problem, then we take actions. Then the Federal Trade Commission will take action. They will put high compensations on them, billions and billions of dollars. But no, most of the time they are waiting whether there is innovation or not. The European way is different. The European way is first we have the regulation and then we will have the technique. So we must decide what is better. probably from an innovative point of view, it is better how the Americans are dealing with it. Not to regulate so much, but when there is a problem, to put high fines on this enterprise. How they did in the past. In the past, for example, 30 years ago, they told Microsoft, because it was a dominant enterprise, they told them, you have to sell parts of your business when you don't change your policy. With the discrimination of others, then you have to sell it. They put a lot of pressure on Microsoft. And then Microsoft changed their policy, they changed their products, and then it was more friendly. You know, in the past, Microsoft was the enemy of data protection. Nowadays, it's Insta and WhatsApp, and it will be the same. Next, please. You see, next, next, please. And you see there's another problem when it comes to personal data. The principle is you need a justification when somebody else would like to use your personal data. For example, you need a consent. Or you need another specific reason to use the personal data. But the problem in reality is to give your consent, you must know what they are doing with your personal data. For example, when you're using a web page and there's a cookie banner on it asking you to accept or to read more, what are you doing? You accept. You never read the conditions. Why? Because the conditions are complicated. The conditions are all in English. The conditions explain you what they will do with your personal data on your computer, but it's nearly impossible to understand. You must be an informatic to understand it. You will understand it. But we are not informatics, so we don't understand what you can do with a cookie. We just accept them. But we do it because we want to use the web page, and our attitude is they will do with our data anyway what they want. So we don't read it. But then you have to read all the conditions, and then you have to understand them. It will take days, so you want to use the web page. So for example, to give your consent that they use your data via the cookie banner is just an idea of data protection. But you're not aware. For example, there are cookies, and with the cookies you can open the camera on your laptop, and then they can track your eyes. What are you reading in the internet? And then they know, okay, when you get an email, you're normally looking for the discount first. So they know, okay, this person using the computer, we have to send her more messages about discounts, because then she will buy something. So this just a question, just one point, that the justification of the use of personal data is sometimes only an idea, but no real protection because you don't understand what they want. Next, please. Now we come to the Data Act at the end, just to give you the other side. So we have seen data protection is about the protection of the human being, of the data subject. It's very personal. And that means that you have a lot of pressure on enterprises in a way to fulfill all the conditions under the data protection law, at least when you're in Indonesia and when you're in Europe. Now the European Commission decided, okay, you have personal data, but on the other hand, you have also machine data, for example, and for new business, for new companies, for the development of innovation, it is important also to use this data. For example, the information in your BYD, in your BMW, that the brake is doing some specific effects when you are driving in a specific manner. it's a good information for the developer of brakes. And normally it's only taken by BMW. And now under this Data Act, they are forced to share the data with third parties. And the Data Act is on the one hand about personal data. It applies also to personal data and to non-personal data. And here we have the problem I would like to mention at the end. Next, please. Next, you have the problem about how to find a balance between the protection of the personal data and the goal of the Data Act to share data. Next, please. Because the problem is, the law says, the Data Act says, that there is still the data protection without limitation. And so when you have some information, for example, about your car, it is technical information, how you have used the car, but in a way is also personal information about you, how you used it. And so this is the problem at the moment, and I told you, the law is in force for a fortnight now, for 2 weeks, so we don't know what will happen. But this is the problem, next please, to strike this balance when you have this connected cars, this connected products, generating data you can use for innovation, but when there is also personal data. And so we developed some ideas on it, how you can tackle, how you can strike this balance between the protection of the human and the protection of innovation. But it's not in the law at the moment. The law is that on the one hand data protection, on the other hand Data Act, and no idea how to strike a balance. And to have innovations in practice, you must find a solution to it. Because the Data Act is right, you need a data sharing community. But in the Data Act you have so many rules under which conditions it is allowed to share the data, and then you have the problem you told us, Stefan, about a business secret, so the company can argue, oh no, it's our business secret. So it's fully unclear what happens when somebody wants to share the data with a third party, and who is allowed to do so, and what are they allowed to do. And we will see in the future. And coming back to the beginning, the problem with the law is always that it is not modern. They tell us that this is a modern law. It's an old law. It's 2 years old now. And this is old in the field of data law. The Data Protection Act is now the new one from 2018, 7 years ago. 7 years ago, then you were at school. 7 years ago, we had a totally different world in the sense of the internet, in the sense how to deal with data. That means the law was developed from 2016, and this is nearly 10 years ago. So the world changed. And so the question is whether law can help us in this field. This is what Stefan told us about responsibility, how to deal with data, how to find education to the people to deal with their data, because the law is always looking back. And then we try to tell what will happen in future. We don't know. When we meet again in 5 years, the digital world will be totally different. We will laugh about ChatGPT. Probably there isn't any ChatGPT in 5 years, there's something different. We can't decide now, but the law tries to decide and will implement such rules, so it's very questionable whether this is helpful or not. Thank you very much. We will have a discussion. Thank you very much to the friends for listening, and have a good time.
Wow. I just say wow. Wonderful. So many times they mention data. Imagine, brother and sister, how important data for us. But now we can see in our reality, every day we share data, post the data. And sometimes your friends asking your phone number, friends, you just send the data. Wow, how important data for us. Wow, 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 wow. Wonderful. Thank you for the wonderful speakers, Professor Michael and Professor Stefan. We are going to go to the next session, question and answer. Are you ready, guys? Okay, give a big applause first. Well, we are going to go to the next sessions about question and answer. I will allow you to ask question, but please, not too much opening, just to the point, just because.
Question for question, because we are old, we forget when they collect the question.
Okay, I'm ready. Okay, guys, are you ready? Lectures is okay. In here, there is a students from law, from communications, from health, and for computer science. Computer science every day related to data. How important data for you, right? Well, we allow you to ask a question. You raise your hand first. Wow. Mention your name, mention your faculty, mention your department, and directly to the point to the questions, okay? Okay. Who will be the first time? Wow. The girl? Okay, you first. It's okay. What's your name? Okay, please help me. Give a microphone, please. Okay, excuse me, brother, professor. What's your name? Sorry? Adila, from faculty?
Undergraduate
Wow.
studies from informatic engineering.
Informatic engineering. You're from here. It's okay.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam. To the point.
I will introduce myself and my name Adila Fitra Huljana. You can call me Adila, sir.
Adila. Okay.
I have a good question for Sir Prof. Stefan Kaus. Do you believe that strict data laws in a country can make that country lag behind in global innovation? If so, yes, why? And if not, why not? Thank you, sir.
Okay. Professor, here is the microphones.
Naya, as Professor Bohne already mentioned in his presentation, what's then? What? Yeah. As Professor Bohne in his presentation mentioned, and also I also mentioned that a little bit, actually we believe that too strict prohibitive rules in digitalization are not helpful anymore. Because in the legislation we must always, kita harus selalu pikir ada yang down point and then ada yang high point, the positive dan the negative. Legislation adalah selalu batasan untuk libur ekonomi, libur masyarakat, ya. So kalau ada batasan libur, ada good reason, harus good reason, perlu good reason. So kalau legislation mungkin tidak berfungsi, legislation itu di perspektif saya sebagai illegal, ya, unconstitutional. Dan saya sudah bilang, prohibitive legislation tidak akan berfungsi di dunia digitalis karena tidak ada sovereignty territorial factually. Factually, we don't have territorial sovereignty anymore. From the definition, sovereignty is defined also by control over state territory. But if something is not happening in the state territory, but coming from outside, and we cannot limit it, and we cannot limit the internet unless we are North Korea, then we don't have territorial sovereignty. And then traditional legislation, which is prohibitive, is not working. Because or this legislation is extraterritorial, then we have a problem of the international public law because we govern into the inner affairs of other countries. This is not a problem for me, also not for European Union. This is factual the situation because we have a self-defense for our citizens to protect our citizens. If the effect is extraterritorial, it's not our business. This is the same like in the supply chain what I managed. Yeah, that is the crisis of the international law because we cannot take care of the international law anymore. When we have the power, the law of the strongest will win. And the question is only if the law of the strongest is the American law and the Chinese or us with certain ethic rules. But what I want to say is, if we cannot regulate that, if it's not working, because we cannot anyway enforce properly, then the legislasi itu bikin batas, tapi batas menghindari inovasi. Ya, perlindungan data pribadi. Ya. Yeah, anyway not working because there's no enforcement. Tidak ada peraturan enforcement untuk enforcement. Belum ada. Ada legislasi itu tapi tidak ada peraturan untuk bagaimana enforce di teritori Indonesia ya. Tapi juga kalau itu tidak bisa enforce practically karena usaha-usaha digital dan platform United States atau China tidak akan respect hukum itu, ya. So kalau ada hukum tidak bisa enforce, tapi itu prohibitif, itu batas untuk inovasi, ya. Ya, itu batas inovasi, itu tidak baik untuk usaha kita. Dan pertanyaan yang pertama adalah bagaimana juga dengan situasi ini bisa perlindungan etika di masyarakat kita, perlindungan budaya di masyarakat kita. Dan itu karena itu saya bilang harus ada lebih responsibility diri di orang-orang, di warga negara, di masyarakat. Misalnya kalau mau perlindungan budaya di metaverse, bagaimana? Bagaimana mau mengkontrol ada di metaverse ada pornografi? Kalau mau kontrol ada orang Indonesia tidak menggunakan pornografi atau konsumsi pornografi, tidak bisa. Ada mungkin avatar officer Indonesia di metaverse dan bagaimana? Itu tidak bisa. So kalau mau perlindungan budaya di dunia digitalis harus yakin bahwa Anda mau perlindungan budaya Anda. Ya, kalau budaya tidak kuat, itu nanti hilang di budaya global. Dan budaya global mungkin lain daripada budaya global hari ini dengan ya influensi Amerika, budaya Barat itu different. Karena tidak ada budaya dengan regulasi. Because what in the internet happens can be very anarchic. Yeah? So when you ask me, is it good? I would prefer legislation not so prohibitive because it's anyway not working. It leads to erosion of the law because nobody will trust the law anymore. Rather, I would say give incentives to the companies to comply with certain basic rules, and then the most important is Homo digitalis must be well aware of the dangers, of the functioning of the internet, and so. And unfortunately, I'm very negative. I'm very pessimistic because we know all the people that we had 70% people who have no idea about something. They are really criticless. We have at least 10 to 20%, maybe even 30% full idiots in every society who believe everything about from flat Earth to that Mrs. Clinton have a pizzeria, and under the pizzeria she pressed children to blood drink to become eternally living, and these things what the Trump fan base that people believe that. So I don't believe in this responsibility, but actually that is the only way. So it's not working. It will stop innovation. And the good example is European legislation. European legislation of AI, as I mentioned, stops innovation. And we punish our own companies. We punish our own companies because we have a very comprehensive definition about what is AI. In the first version, there was even a definition of AI which also termasuk software umum. Yeah, it's not AI. Yeah, so they already. But what do we know? What is the problem in 2 years? What do we know? What problem arise in 2 years with AI? We cannot address that in a legislation horizontal for everything for the next time. And then don't forget, European Union is, I don't know how many, 15 member states, and we have all the time compromises. And until European Union reacts for the new developments, the development is already over, because we have no agile legislation. 24, yeah, 24 member states, yeah.
My name is Muhammad Farhan Habibi.
Sorry?
Farhan Habibi.
Farhan.
Farhan.
Farhan from?
Medical record.
Oh, medical record.
Yeah. Okay. For my question is, how to make people in Indonesia realize to digital globalization and data law is important, because people in Indonesia sometimes ignore about this.
With Professor Michael or Professor?
Professor Michael.
Okay, Michael, please.
Yes, thank you very much for the question. Yeah, I can understand you, of course. You listen to all the presentations, thank you. So, no, it's the question we have in general, how to educate people. It's what Stefan said before, how to give awareness that people, for example, fight for the rights. That they stand up and that they tell, okay, we'll have a court action when they infringe your personal data or your personal rights. But on the other hand, the problem is the devices with the lowest data protection level are the best. I mean, for example, we don't use Zoom because it's against data protection law. We are forbidden to use it. So, but it's the better system. We have to use WebEx or we have to use Teams. It's not as good as it is when you use Zoom. And now the Data Commission of the European Union even argues against Teams. They tell the Commission they shouldn't use Microsoft products anymore. And so they say, what should we use? What should we use? So sometimes we don't have a choice, as Stefan says, whether we use it or not. So in the end, it is all about that the people get educated, what you can do in order that not too much data is transferred to America, or that you try to use the social media not without any consciousness about the problems. But in the end, it's difficult, you know, to educate people. Because as we talked about with the cookies, we know that they are doing things we don't like. But when you want to visit this web page, you give a click to reject. It's a proper to accept. It's a possibility to reject and to choose different cookies that you tell them, okay, you don't use this and that cookie. I don't understand them, he understands them, but nevertheless, you also click only on acceptance. Yes, of course.
It's important for me, the web page. I will accept.
Of course. So this is, yes, exactly. So it's very difficult. It's very difficult how to educate them.
Maybe we should come away from that idea that we should be protected all the time. Misalnya, kalau mau berbicara tentang legislasi hygienic, food hygienic, makanan. Kalau Singapura tidak mau street food. Street food di Singapura itu di rumah-rumah yang besar dan mereka bisa mengontrol food hygienic di sana easier ya, kurang sulit. Dan Presiden Prabowo di Singapura berbicara tentang kita harus mungkin transfer legislasi Singapura di korupsi, anti korupsi, legislasi Singapura itu ke Indonesia. Basically good idea. I'm not criticizing Mr. Prabowo. In the UN it was very impressive how he was talking, yeah. But this is not so easy. This is the typical issue like asking me, Prof, can we transfer European legislation here and into Indonesia? If you do that, the people will not want it. I mean, the people say, oh, we have a modern food hygienic law. Then the World Bank will say, Indonesia has modern laws, and they renovate their law, and new anti-corruption law, new food hygienic law. But what happens with your culture? Apa terjadi dengan budaya makanan di sini di Indonesia kalau ada legislasi seperti di Singapura di Indonesia? Apa terjadi dengan Bapak dengan kaki 5 or 5 kaki whatever jual tahu ya, di jalan ya? Bagaimana mau mengontrol Bapak itu? Banyak orang-orang di sini tidak punya dapur kadang-kadang di rumah mereka ya, mereka makan di jalan. Saya juga makan di jalan, tapi saya sudah tahu itu tidak aman ya. Saya lihat bapak kotor atau tidak kotor. Kalau tidak terlalu kotor saya makan ya, dan trust ya. Tapi saya sudah well aware tidak ada perlindungan saya ya. Nanti kalau saya diarrhea, okay, it's my risk ya. This is the culture here ya. The people don't want to be protected against these risks. And if they import this kind of legislation to Indonesia, what will happen? They will control maybe some media companies, media restaurants, the biggest expensive restaurants which are maybe owned by influencing people, maybe not controlled or less controlled, and the BAPA cannot be controlled. Yeah, nobody can control. Maybe one BAPA pays, one BAPA not, depending maybe on a police officer. I don't know what happens. But it will not be consistent enforcement of law, I'm sure, yeah? And the same happened with the corruption. I mean, of course, you can make anti-corruption law like in the West. Of course you can do that. But what is about the mindset? I ask all the time in every lecture in Indonesia about law and conditions of the global law. When we talk about WTO and why the WTO does not bring justice in the world and why there is this corruption and this corruption, I asked always a student, if you had the option to take that and nobody will find out, but you are in a big position and you can take the money and you can become rich, but nobody will find out, it's relatively riskless. Would you do? Of course, Pa! Many of them say, of course I would. Yeah? And why is that? I mean, they would. So it's not about I'm angry about corruption because corruption is not ethic and it is consuming the power of the nation, and Indonesia cannot really grow better because consumption is not fair and is not. No, it's about I hate corruption because I cannot have that and the others can have. Yeah, not all of course, but some people think like that. Yeah, so without changing this mindset. Or without changing, for example, the localism, yeah? That, for example, for a president in Thailand, like Shinawatra, is more important to bring all the money to the north and then forget about the south, and then you have riots because the south people hate it, or Suharto bringing all to Java, and Sumatra, forget about Sumatra, or Sulawesi, forget about that, it's all Java because I'm Javanese, yeah? And then I'm Minang, I'm Sumatra, I'm Malayu, I'm Bali, yeah, everything like this, yeah. So Bali discriminate Javanese discriminate Mina, and so on. So as long as that is not changing, you can make a lot of transfer of legislation from Singapore or from America or Japan or Europe. It will not work if you're not adapted to the culture. So if you ask me how to change the mindset, I have no idea, yeah. Because maybe not. Because we should maybe accept that people don't want to be protected against all. A certain level of corruption is part of the system. Right? I mean, I pay 200,000 here or 150,000. Is it part of the? It's not that big deal, yeah. We have corruption in Germany too. Don't think we are not corrupt, yeah. In the offices where they decide about buildings how can we construct a building. This is well known that there is often corruption. But if the corruption comes out, it's a shaming. Yeah, but here you see politicians, sometimes they say, yeah, I took the money, so what? I heard that some years ago, there was some issue, right? Yeah, so I don't criticize Indonesia. I love Indonesia. I will live here. I love Indonesia, and I don't say you have a lot of issues here and we not. We have also other issues. Yeah, Indonesia is not worse than other countries, but this is a problem. How you want to be self-responsible if you are watching these things in the internet? What a terrorist makes with a body cam. For what you watch it? Is your own thing?
It's okay. Thank you for the wonderful. Give me a big applause, please. How about a question and answer? It's okay? Yes. Here? Yes, in YouTube, including YouTube. Yes. Live? Live? Yes, this is live. It's live in the YouTube channel. Thank you, brother. And now, we are waiting for the question from a computer faculty. Health faculties already. Hello, we have been waiting. And now we come to the next one from faculty computer. Nasha, where are you? Okay, stand up please. Here's the microphone. Mr. Benny, Pak Benny, what time will be the end? 11:15. Oh, we have still have a time, 30 more minutes, Prof. Nasha? Hello? Nasha, where are you? Not Nasha. Oh, no, you, I'm sorry. Nasha from computer faculty, yes. And Lo? Where is the student South Lo? Sorry? Okay, it's okay. Okay, Nasha, please. To the point, right? With Mr. Steven? Mr. Steven, okay.
So, Professor Dr. Steven said before that we need to have a self-responsible of our own data. But unfortunately, we as the student cannot avoid sharing our personal data when joining online platforms or even for applying jobs or internship. And in Indonesia, for example, it is very common for companies that they are request our sensitive information like ID number or even our family data. So the question is, from your perspective or your experience in Europe, where regulation like GDPR is very stricter, what lessons can we apply to a better protection of or safeguard to our personal data in these situations? Thank you.
To Mr. Steven, personal data. Okay. Please. It is related to personal data. In Indonesia, so many when we apply the jobs, we have to give the data.
Thank you very much for the question. A very good question at all, because this is an era where you can protect personal data and where the data protection law can protect the people. We have a lot of cases in Germany on this. What is the employer or the employer in the future allowed to search when about a person when there is an application for a job? And this was the question, very good question. And there is just a decision last week or the week before where the court decided when the employer is doing research about the applicants for a job, the person had the right to be informed about the research, about what they prompt in the searching machine, so that he can tell them, for example, to delete the information. And on the other hand, we have decisions in Germany that the employer is not allowed to search the internet in the social media, for example. They are only allowed to search in social media for professional reasons, like LinkedIn. But of course, in practice, that's a problem. Normally, the employer won't tell the applicants, oh, I did a research in the internet about you and on Insta, and I saw that you are on parties very often, and I did a search for your father, and I saw that he's a very important person, or so on. Normally, they won't tell you. So it's a problem, again, of how to implement it, but you have the possibility then to tell the person it's a kind of discrimination, and they have to pay compensation to the applicants. And this is the problem of the mentality you have sometimes in Indonesia. You know, in Europe, the employees have the attitude that they can sue their employers on data protection, breach of data protection. And that's normally not during their employment, it's normally after the employment. When they have some problems with their employers in court, then nowadays they always argue about data protection. That there was a problem in data protection in the enterprise, in the company, and this can be also a problem, you know? So I think the way to tell, to say, okay, he can do some research on the internet about the applicants, but then the employer has to inform the person what kind of searching has he done before. He has done before.
Sorry, but based on your presentations, if I'm not mistaken, not only self-responsibility, but also from the government, there is a responsibility like PDP role or whatever. What about in Germany? You know what I mean? Related to private data, in Indonesia, I read from your presentation, actually it is not only the responsibility from the users, but also it's responsibility from government. What do you think about it, Prof?
Well, the government tries to enforce it by the specific data protection authorities. So you have an administration about it, you have a legal entity, and this one should control. And they can go to the company and can put fines on it, and so you have a strong authority in this perspective. It's like an anti-corruptive corruption administration, something like that.
Okay, thank you. Okay, well, it is time, still 15 minutes. We have, I think, last questions. Last question, sorry, that is from Mr. Benny. This is a lecturer from Health Faculty. Okay, Pak Benny, sorry. We have a limited time. And now our speakers will be ready to go to flight, preparing for the flight. And Mr. Benny, please. Here's the microphone.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Harry. Good morning, sir. This is the last question for this session, and my question is: we have any accident about the data leaks from the government, like confidential data, like a citizen ID number. So, what do you think about that? What should the government Indonesia do to protect stealing data from the accident? Thank you.
This is a question, as I said before, this is a question of how to fulfill the legal conditions, you know, because it's a problem of cybersecurity. And that means that you need also legislation on cybersecurity, and there must be a law how the government can be forced to introduce cybersecurity. But as long as the government doesn't care about cybersecurity, then you have a problem. In Germany, for example, it would be possible to go to the Constitutional Court because it's an infringement of your rights as a data subject, but it is also an infringement of your personal right, of your right under Indonesian constitution. The same in Germany. So this would be possible to go to the Constitutional Court in a way to force the government possibly to have a higher degree of cybersecurity. I don't know whether this would be possible in Indonesia. I'm not sure. But to force a government is always a problem. Whether it is in Europe or in Indonesia or somewhere else, to force the government is always a problem, of course. Thank you very much for the question.
Wow, give a big applause, please. Okay, I'm really sorry for all the participants, for my loving audience already coming here, for Mrs. and Mr. lecturers. Today, just because it's on Friday, Muslim people have good preparations to go to the mosque. I'm really sorry. I think we come to the end of our seminar. I would like to once again express our sincere gratitude to Professor Michael Bones, Professor Dr. Stephen Ghost. I really appreciate your insight, wonderful explanation and presentation. Hopefully, it is not only the first time. Next time you are going to come here again, I will welcome you. Wow, very wonderful. Thank you very much. I'm really sorry if I did a mistake. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, bro. Thank you so much.